everyone, it's Melanie of Art Studio 320, and this week I have a 6-drawer dresser. It's tall, it's narrow, and I haven't worked on one like this, and I'm excited. This dresser, I think, is made out of a material called MDF, which is a medium density fiberboard. That means that I probably won't be discovering any beautiful wood underneath this week, but it is an opportunity to do something different, paint the whole thing. But I've got a few surprises up my sleeve, so if you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment and press that red button. You can also follow me on Instagram, and you can find me on Etsy, where I sell some of my projects that I've done right here on my channel. Stick around. I'm using my favorite cleaner, vinegar and water, and the ratio I use is 1:1. The best part about my cleaner is it's cheap, and you can't beat that. It works really well too. I knew that I was going to change up the hardware, so I went ahead and got out the plastic Wood-X and filled in all of those holes so that I would be ready for whatever I was going to do. I was pretty sure this piece wasn't going to reveal any beautiful wood, so I scuff sanded the entire piece with 60 grit, and then I went back with a 220. The 60 grit turned out to be too much. You could see that it sanded right into the laminate really quickly, so I had to put wood filler back on it. I was sanding in my basement, which I don't like to do because I don't have a vacuum system to take care of the dust. But you absolutely have to have a respirator on if you're going to be sanding anything anywhere, and especially when you're using plastic Wood-X, because it has silica sand in it and you do not want to breathe that. This piece had some grooves in the front, decorative grooves, and I wanted to fill them all in, and it wasn't hard, except it just took patience and some time because, you know, plastic Wood-X works really well, but it's not perfect. So I had to reapply a couple of times and then sand it back again. But I think it looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but I don't think anybody's going to notice. This piece was very dusty after all that sanding, so I used a microfiber cloth to clean it all off, and a Tack Cloth is good as well. Then I primed it, and I put 2 coats on this piece because it was in rough shape, and I just wanted to give it the nicest finish I could, and I thought the best way to do that was to start with the Zinsser BIN primer. Any piece you work on is going to have nooks and crannies and little places that you're going to miss if you don't move the piece around in different ways. So I like to lay a piece on the side, lay it on its back, just to be sure that I'm not missing anything, because you just do. And after I put the primer on, I did have to go back with some of the Wood-X again, just to fill in some gaps. That's just the way it is. That's just part of the process. Once you're finished with all of that and you've got your primer down, if you're using primer, You want to go back and you want to sand it with a 220, nothing really rough, just something smooth. And then you're going to want to wipe it off with a tack cloth, and then you want to rub your hand across it to get a feel of what it's going to be like, if it's smooth, if it still needs some more sanding. I chose two colors for this piece. One was Bellwood, which is kind of a greenish gray, and the other was Goddess, which is a beautiful neutral color. It's kind of a, I think of it as a cashmere. I like using a roller for flat surfaces. It just leaves a really nice finish. And the skin that I like to use is by Purdy, and it's for ultra finish, for all paints and finishes, ultra smooth finish, 1/2 inch nap. Check it out. Anytime you want to have a nice sharp line where your paint is, you need painter's tape, and I use a square to make sure that it's straight. That way I get a nice sharp line between the two colors. After you're finished painting and in between coats, you want to use a really fine finishing pad. That way you get the smoothest finish possible. I'll say right now, if you're in a hurry, don't use a stencil because you have to be patient. When you're using a roller, which I think is the best way, you have to have a roller that's kind of sticky or tacky. The paint is tacky, because if it's not, it's going to ooze through the stencil. Just a little tip from me that always does it the wrong way first. If you have two paints butting up next to each other, you need to use painter's tape. Once for the one side, and then you have to put it on the painted side to paint the second side. Just make sure that the paint is dry before you put the painter's tape on there. Now you don't have to do this, but I like to paint on the inside just to give it a more finished look, even when the drawers don't have a frame around them. I just feel like it just looks nicer when you pull out the drawer. Well, you never know. I did discover some pretty wood. The craziest thing happened when I stained these drawers. I used the same stain for both of the drawers, and they did not look the same at all. This color I really liked. It was a chestnut color, and the other one you can see in the background, I used the same stain, and it was much darker. Just goes to show you. So I went ahead and I left it that way because I kind of liked it. What I'm doing is inspecting. I'm looking to make sure I've caught all of the little funky spots that I might have missed. It's time to get the hardware on. So I have to drill some holes. I haven't done this for a while. You have to find the center first, and then you want to make sure that your hardware is what it says it is, because it's not always what it says it is. So you want to measure from hole to hole where you put the screws in, center to center, and then you measure that, and then you need to find where the actual hole needs to be drilled. And sometimes this can go off, so you have to measure once, measure twice, just to be sure before you do any drilling. I am a very bad judge when it comes to the size of the drill bit and the screws. I had to do this 3 times because I just didn't want it to be too big, so it's better to start small and work your way up. If the hole is too big, then your hardware is going to be wiggly. I'm using amazing crafting resin to make my decorative pieces for the front of the piece. This is a very simple process. It's not complicated at all. I did wear gloves this time because when you get this stuff on your hands, it just doesn't come off. It's kind of like super glue. It's really hard to get off, so I suggest you wear gloves. This piece had so many drawers and it just seemed kind of boring and monotonous. I wanted to change it up, and I stained the top 2 drawers, and I decided to use different hardware and went back to the original holes. The design process can take time, so I suggest you just sit down and mess around with different pieces that you have and just see what you like. It may take a while. It may take a couple of different times of sitting down and looking at it and thinking about it differently, but you'll get there. Hey friends, it is Wednesday and I have pretty much finished my piece except for the decorative part. And that's the part that I was hoping would really bring this piece up a notch. And I think it will, but I have a lot of choices to make. What I have right here are the drawers. And these pulls, I was not crazy about. I feel like they're a little bit too industrial looking. I wanted kind of a softer look. So I am presently looking for more of a white ceramic to match these, which I'm really pleased with. Those came in the mail today. I don't know if you've refinished enough furniture, you know that a lot of times the screws that come with the hardware that comes with the hardware doesn't fit. It's a difference between inches and millimeters, and beyond that, I don't know. It's stupid, but I don't know why they don't check them beforehand. But I'm sure with the more expensive hardware, maybe that's not true. But with the volume of hardware that I purchase, I don't purchase cheap, but I don't purchase expensive. So I have this problem over and over again, and this was no exception. The threads are different, and when you're screwing it in, it screws in a little bit, but it doesn't go in the whole way. It's really stupid. So I got the basics done on the piece, and then I want to add a decorative element to this piece. I chose greenery. These two are from the same mold, but they're going different ways. You can kind of manipulate it to go the way you want it to while it's still soft. A lot of times you'll get this little webbing if there's some spillage, which is really easy to do. So what I do is I just take a utility knife and I go in there and I just cut that piece out. Hard for me to do backwards. You want to make sure your utility knife is nice and sharp, and you also want to make sure that your fingers are always out of the way. It's easy to slip, especially if a utility knife isn't something that you use on a regular basis. So I got rid of the little webbing there. And you can go back in and just trim it up a little bit. So it looks nice. It doesn't look ragged and like it came out of a mold. You don't want it to look like that. I started to make a design on the top of the drawers. And I had some thoughts about whether I wanted my design to come around, whether I wanted it to go up on the wood or just on the green. Do I want it to sweep around this way? Do I want to do each individual drawer and make it one big design but not flowing? There are endless ways you can do this, but I'm going to paint them first and then I'm going to create my design. You want to do that, and then you want to go back, and I'm going to use Tite Bond this time. I'm really liking this glue. It should work really nicely. You just want to make sure that you don't get too much glue on it that it oozes out. Just make sure you have a damp cloth nearby so you can wipe off all the ooze after you push down your piece. I was toying with the idea of using bayberry on the leaves, except it's awfully dark. I'm just not sure I'm going to like it. So I think I'm going to go with more of a contrasting color and stick with the color palette I've already chosen, which is the Goddess on top of the drawers. That should be a nice contrast. There are lots of different ways you can do it. You could actually paint these and take your time and do all the intricate painting part, and I would love to do that, but it would take a lot of time, and I'm ahead of schedule this week, and I want to keep it that way. All right, stick around. This is a nice little touch, just painting the little dovetail joints. I like to do that when I can. Well, sometimes you get it wrong. I had to move the tape because I got it in the wrong place. It wasn't matching up with the front. So I just changed it. It's not a big deal. I am using Dixie Belle's Chameleon Wax. It's called Cactus, and it just gives kind of an opalescent green color to my greenery. I've already painted these pieces with the Goddess color to match the rest of the piece, and I am lightly brushing them with the Chameleon Wax just to give it a little extra oomph. I'm using a very soft brush just to dry brush these pieces. It's kind of like a makeup brush, but it's not, it's a paintbrush. I put my design down, and then I took a picture of it so that when I was gluing them back on, in case I bumped it, I wouldn't mess it up. So that's why my cell phone is sitting there. I took my time with this. I just used the glue. I had to trim out the pieces a little bit as I went so they would lay flat, and you just go along. You use a damp cloth to wipe off some oozing, and you're done. Well, friends, that's all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you like the results. I'm very happy with the results. You know, the composition was a little tough at first. My suggestion, when you're working on a composition, you lay it all out and just move it around. If you're frustrated, walk away, come back to it, and just work on it. This one was a little bit more challenging for me, so I did have to walk away, had dinner, came back, and it came together. So just keep working on it. Don't get frustrated. Take your time. Be patient. It'll come. Don't forget to stick around for the after pictures. Thanks for being here. See you next time.
You can do it.